Hello. In this video I'll be explaining my theory on Five Nights at Freddy's. This video will be split into two parts. The first will be a timeline of events, and the second will be a more focused look at Five Nights at Freddy's 4. Let's not waste any time. We start at the Fredbear Family Diner, Site 0. This is shown in the Stage 1 minigame. It's called Stage 1 because it's the first restaurant, and so the first stage. The diner has two animatronics that can also become wearable suits, the brown hat-wearing Fredbear and a yellow Bonnie. These are the original characters because Phone Guy calls them the classic suits in Five Nights 3. Fredbear Diner is sold and its new owners turn it into the Freddy Fazbear Pizza chain of restaurants. The company closes down the diner and opens two new restaurants, the location of the first game, Site 1, as well as the location that was opened before the location of the second game, Site 2 or Site 2.0. We know that there were multiple restaurants open at the same time, because in the third game, Phone Guy mentions an incident occurring at the sister location. Sites 1 and 2 each get a set of 4 animatronics that can't become suits. A Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, and Foxy. The original Spring suits are split among these two sites, Spring Bonnie to Site 1 and Spring Fredbear to Site 2. Phone Guy works at Site 1 and starts recording tapes, training users on how to operate the Spring suits. Purple Man works at Site 2. At some point, Site 2's animatronics start getting refitted with new technology, transforming them into what will become the withered animatronics of the second game. At the same time, the Puppet and Balloon Boy are added to the cast of characters at Site 2. At Site 2, Site 1's sister location, the Spring Fredbear malfunctions, probably killing the user. The company tries to cover up the death. They have the corpse and machinery removed from the suit and hide the empty suit in the back room of Site 2. They tell employees to stop using the classic Spring suit at Site 1, and has Spring Bonnie sealed in Site 1's secret room. But the company can't get rid of the yellow characters completely, that would be too suspicious. Fredbear is a large part of the company's history and the Freddy Fazbear brand, as shown by the TV show in the fourth game's minigames. So they open a new restaurant, Site 3. Site 3 is a more faithful recreation of the original Fredbear Diner, having only Fredbear, now wearing a more colourful hat, and Yellow Bonnie animatronics, as well as staff wearing Fredbear and Yellow Bonnie suits, but no convertible Springlock suits. This is shown by the two people in suits in the same minigame as the animatronics are on stage. Now the company can get rid of the dangerous Spring suits, without anyone wondering what happened to Fredbear and Yellow Bonnie and asking awkward questions. After the Springlock incident, the company supplies temporary suits to Sites 1 and 2, and has employees wear them, until the company decides to just use the normal animatronics at Sites 1 and 2. These are Shadow Bonnie and Purple Freddy. Since Site 2 is where the children were murdered, the murder victims may remember some details of Purple Freddy, but not the temporary suit at Site 1. Hence why it's so much harder to see the details on Shadow Bonnie. They don't know what he looked like. The Purple Man kills a child outside of Site 2.0, while a party of children is being entertained by the Freddy animatronic. This child's ghost somehow becomes bound to the puppet. The murderer then uses the now empty Fredbear suit, the one his co-worker died in, to lure children into the back room of Site 2.0 and murder them. This had to happen at Site 2, because Foxy's Pirate Cove was replaced with Kids Cove at the location of the second game. The puppet ghost somehow helps the ghosts of the other children bind to the Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, and Foxy animatronics, as well as the Fredbear costume, Golden Freddy. Site 2 shuts down, and moves to the second game's location, Site 2.1. The company decides to stop refitting the old animatronics, and replaces them with new, toy versions that are also under the influence of the children. The children took control of all the versions of their character, not a specific animatronic. Phone Guy moves to Site 2.1, and Purple Man becomes the Night Watchman for its first week. The Purple Man asks to move to the day shift, and the protagonist of the second game replaces him on the night shift. The events of the second game take place. While the second game is happening, the children's influence is starting to spread to the animatronics of Site 1, as shown by the cutscenes between the nights of the second game. The puppet and Golden Freddy are just spiritual projections, and aren't actually at Site 1. The police begin investigating the disappearances of the children at Site 2. Video footage shows the Purple Man luring children into the back room while wearing the empty yellow Fredbear suit. The Purple Man is arrested and convicted for their murders, but the bodies of the children were never found. The police couldn't find the bodies at Site 2 because they were moved to Site 2.1. The second game ends just before the bite of 87, with the protagonist replacing the Purple Man as daytime security guard of Site 2.1. We see the bite take place during a mini-game of Five Nights 4. A child at Site 3 was bitten by the Fredbear animatronic. After that, both Site 2.1 and Site 3 are shut down. Site 2.1 because of the disappearances, Site 3 because of the bite, leaving Site 1 as the only restaurant left, with the animatronics left abandoned at Site 2.1 and Site 3. At Site 1, the Night Watchman is attacked by the animatronics and stuffed into a suit, killing him. The company covers up another death, and Phone Guy returns to Site 1 to become Night Watchman. During his last week, Phone Guy records messages for his replacement. During his final recording, he is successfully attacked and replaced with the protagonist of the first game. The events of the original game take place, after which Site 1 is shut down and the company goes out of business. Eventually, the spirits of the children come to terms with what happened to them, shown in the secret mini-games of the third game. Somehow, Purple Man returns to the abandoned restaurants. The animatronics don't attack him because they want to be destroyed, so the spirits of the children that are bound to them would be free. At Site 1, the Purple Man destroys the animatronics. Once they are all free, they confront their murderer. Naturally, the Purple Man is scared of them, and in his panic, he gets inside the Spring Bonnie suit, thinking it will protect him, and it kills him, creating Springtrap. And the spirits of the children move on to the afterlife. Time passes, and the Fazbear's Fright horror attraction is created, Site 4. The creators of the attraction search the previous locations, but can't find any animatronics, because the Purple Man destroyed them all, except for Springtrap. The third game begins, and the secret room of Site 1 is searched. Springtrap is found and taken to Site 4. Springtrap tries to attack the protagonist of the fourth game. Since the spirits of the children are no longer bound to the characters, the murderer takes control of the characters for himself, and uses their phantoms to attack the protagonist. The third game ends with Site 4 being burned down, destroying Springtrap. But the story isn't over, hence the head from the bad ending missing from the good ending. The murderer may be dead, and he may not have a physical form, but he still exists, in the form of an incorporeal spirit. With the children gone, he controls all the animatronic characters, but the physical animatronics have all been destroyed. So, there's only one place where the characters he controls still exist, and are very, very real. The unconscious mind of the bite victim. Now it's time to talk about the fourth game. To do that, I need to talk about the dream theory. To sum up, the people behind game theory had a live stream discussing the series, during which Scott Cawthon gave hints to the truth behind the series. What is seen in shadows is easily misunderstood in the mind of a child. 4 games, 1 story. And in the Five Nights 4 minigame, why would the tiny toy chica be missing her beak? This last one is the most important. Since this is the same thing that happened to the toy chica in Five Nights 2, this creates a connection between the events of Five Nights 2 and the Five Nights 4 minigames. They concluded that, since the boy saw the toy chica toy had lost her beak in the real world, then that caused the toy chica of Five Nights 2 to lose her beak. Since we are dealing with a character that has already dreamed the events of one game, they concluded that Five Nights 2 was also a dream, influenced by what he saw in the real world. That the entire series is made up of the dreams of this child. I disagree. I think that there is a flaw in their logic. that they made one major false assumption. That the minigames of the fourth game are all accurate. That they all show what really happened in the real world. Instead, I believe the entirety of Five Nights 4, both the nights and the minigames, are a part of the dream. The first 3 games are real. The entirety of the fourth game takes place in the child's coma dream. The only thing that reflects what happened in the real world is the minigame showing the bite. That's not a dream, but the child reliving the memory of what really happened to him. Why do I think this? There are lots of reasons. First, the teleporting talking Fredbear toy. They say the child was imagining it, but that's rather hard to believe. It talks when the child seems too busy crying to be doing much of anything, and with what happens in the last minigame, I think there's more to it than that. We have the flow of the game. Night levels to day levels to tomorrow is another day, then back to night. During the night, he dreams about being attacked, and the next minigame is what he dreams the next day. Also, the laughter and background noises heard throughout them are otherworldly and don't seem to match the locations. And the noise the brother makes is monstrous, the same noise that Nightmare Foxy makes. Then there's the fact that the child ends up at the Freddy restaurant 4 times in as many days. Trapped in a place you don't want to be, brought back time and time again. That certainly seems like a nightmare to me, especially since he's supposed to be having his party at the restaurant. If you're planning to have a child's birthday party at a restaurant, you then wouldn't take the child there over and over again beforehand. That would ruin the special occasion. Seeing how badly he reacts, it's hard to imagine his family doing that. Even with a brother that bullies him, you'd have to be a sadistic, psychotic monster to force your brother into that situation over and over again. We can tell from the final Five Nights 4 minigame that he regrets what happened, so I'm not sure that this version of the character is accurate. This constant tormenting may be an exaggeration caused by the child's trauma and brain damage. Also, we can see the Purple Man at one point, all purple except for white eyes and the yellow thing on his upper torso, despite standing next to and interacting with someone who's properly coloured. And the final minigame clearly has the child hearing his brother talk while dreaming. If this minigame is part of the dream, then it's reasonable to think that all the minigames before it were also part of the dream. I think this is what really happened. The child became a fan of Fredbear and the gang through toys and the TV show. After Site 3 opened, he went there for his birthday party. His brother also had to go, but he was allowed some of his friends to go with him. But when the child got there, the animatronics and people in suits were a lot scarier than he thought they'd be. He starts to cry, and his brother decides to mess with him by putting him in Fredbear's mouth. The child is bitten, causing brain damage that puts the child in a coma. This doesn't kill the child, because Phone Guy says it's amazing that the human body can survive without the frontal lobe. So, in the coma, the child doesn't remember what happened to him, but he subconsciously remembers trauma associated with the Fredbear character and his brother wearing a Foxy mask. So, these things keep scaring him. He's brought back to the Fredbear restaurant over and over again, and his brother torments him every day. The trauma is so strong that these things cause him to just fall to the floor and cry. So why did Scott Cawthon hint at the Toy Chica's missing beak being important? Because this really does prove a connection between the events of Five Nights 2 and the minigames of Five Nights 4. The real events of Five Nights 2 and the dreamed events of Five Nights 4. But how is this possible? The child wouldn't have known that Toy Chica loses her beak. The coma dream of this child somehow included Toy Chica losing her beak, which reflects what really happened. This would be impossible if this was the real world. In the game world, supernatural forces exist. Supernatural forces capable of affecting the minds of people, as seen by the many, many hallucinations seen throughout the games. The obvious explanation for this Toy Chica connection is that it's the result of one of these supernatural forces influencing the dream of the child. The murdered children shouldn't be around anymore. They escaped their animatronics and should be in the afterlife. Plus they wouldn't want to mess with the head of a fellow child. So there's only one real suspect, the murderer, the true villain of the series. There are similarities between Five Nights 4 and the other games, not because its minigames influence the others, but because the villain of the series is influencing, corrupting the mind of the child. Beakless Toy Chica, the purple man showing up in the background, the way Freddy Fazbear is absolutely inescapable in this child's world. The ghost of the murderer has invaded the mind of this child. Why? Because the purple man is dead and probably looking for a new body to inhabit. And here's one with a connection to the animatronics and an owner not really using it. In the fourth game, the nightmare animatronics aren't just nightmares, but representations of a supernatural threat. Losing doesn't mean death. It means the purple man takes control of your body and lives your life. True, it's a brain-damaged body, but we're dealing with a supernatural possession. He'd probably be able to live a normal life and doctors would just call it a miracle. Now, I want you to imagine that you're this child. Imagine that you're in a coma, but you don't know it's a coma. During the night, you think you're asleep, dreaming that you're defending yourself against nightmare animatronics. During the day, you think you've woken up, but you're walking around in a dream world. And everywhere you go, there's this strange Fredbear toy that talks to you. All this Fredbear toy seems to want to do is help you escape the restaurant. Why is that? Because the Fredbear toy doesn't want you to be in the restaurant. The restaurant is where the bite took place. If you stay in the restaurant, then you might be forced to remember what really happened to you in the real world. The only way you're going to escape this coma, this nightmare, is by realizing that you are in a dream, that nothing around you is real, and the only way to remember that it isn't real is to remember what really happened to you. Remember the traumatic event that put you in the coma. And that is what the Fredbear toy does not want to happen. He guides you away from the restaurant, away from what really happened. He's not trying to protect you, but hide the truth from you, keep you in the dream. Because as long as you are in the dream, the purple man can attack you and try to steal your body. This talking Fredbear, this toy based on the costume the murderer used to kill the children, this toy based on the animatronic that put you in a coma, is not really your friend, but the form the purple man is forced to take during the day. But, despite his best efforts, the child remembers what really happened to him. He relives the bite. He realizes that he's in a dream. And when the next night comes, the purple man strikes with one final, desperate attack, throwing everything he has at the child. All 5 nightmare animatronics at once. But the child, like the protagonists before him, and the players themselves, refuses to give in to fear and survives the night. The next day, the child knows he's dreaming. The dream is broken, just a black void shared with the murderer. For the first time, the child becomes aware of the outside world. He hears his brother talking to him, telling him that he's sorry. The Fredbear toy tries to, rather pathetically, tell him that they're still friends, that Fredbear can put him back together, can make him better. But the child knows that he's lying. Fredbear disappears, and the child cries even harder, because he knows that no one can help him. The child dies, finally at peace, escaping his nightmare and whatever fate worse than death was in store for him had the murderer won. And the murderer? After the child murderer is defeated by the child, he has no living body, no physical animatronics to inhabit, and no nightmare animatronics tethering him to the mortal world. He is forced to go to the afterlife, shown in the nightmare mode of the 4th game. In this, you are not playing as the bite victim anymore. You play as the Purple Man, experiencing his eternal punishment. The Purple Man becomes a child, like the children he murdered. He must defend himself against the monsters he created, the nightmare animatronics, and the monster he became, Nightmare. This monster that is made of shadow and wears yellow. This monster that took the form of Fredbear and corrupted it into something evil. This is why there will never be another Five Nights at Freddy's game. You complete the games in order until you finish Five Nights at Freddy's 4. After that there is no other game to move on to. So all you can do is play the Nightmare mode again and again and again. Win or lose, you go back to the main menu and start again. This is the end point of the series. There is no satisfying conclusion to the Nightmare mode, because the Purple Man will be forced to defend himself against the nightmare he created for the rest of eternity.